Welcome to the Kino Cave, everybody, and today we are back with the Kinospective of the MCU movies, and we are continuing our trek through Phase 1 with Kenneth Branagh's Thor. Now, I've always enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's Thor. I really loved it when I was a teenager and going through all the MCU movies for the first time. I didn't catch it in the cinema, but I really enjoyed it when I watched it. I feel like I watched it on repeat. I was kind of at this age where I was really into kind of Lord of the Rings and epic fantasy stuff like that. So I wanted as much of that as possible, and Thor was right up there. So I really enjoyed it as a kid, and I enjoyed coming back to it as an adult. I don't revisit the Thor movies so much. I will go back to the first one occasionally, but really it's Iron Man are the kind of MCU movies I tend to go back to the most. Between that and I do like to come back to the Avengers movies every once in a while. But Thor, I've never really kind of gone back to them as much. I think most people do agree that Thor can tend to have the weakest run of movies, depending on who you ask. I really enjoy going back to Thor. And a big reason why I love it so much is because outside of the other MCU movies to this point, and even outside of a lot of the later MCU movies, this is a very unique movie for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is why I still think this is the best Thor movie to date. Light your torches and pitchforks. So as usual, guys, we're getting into the behind the scenes first. I'm going to go through all of the behind the scenes information that I really enjoyed, and then I'm going to get into my review of Thor at the end of the video. So if you end up liking it, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for more from the Kinospective MCU series. Comment below what you think of Thor and where it ranks in your MCU ranking. First thing that really surprised me about going through the behind the scenes information on the Blu-ray and stuff like that was that Kevin Feige did not focus as much on Avengers setup or things like that. Definitely not as much as he did with Iron Man 2 or anything like that. I thought that by this point, 2011, we know there's an Avengers movie coming. I figured that we would definitely be on track to creating this crossover. But the thing that excited Kevin Feige the most about Thor was that the universe itself was going cosmic, and we were getting a completely different side of this world. To this point, we have only had two Iron Man movies, which are pretty straightforward. A genius inventor builds a suit of armor, and the Hulk, which again is about a scientist creating a green monster. So we're taking this in a completely different direction by introducing gods and space and magic. Now, a great thing to see from the behind the scenes info on this movie is that everybody really liked Kenneth Branagh as a director. They felt that he could emotionally engage with them. Being an actor himself, he's often placing himself in the lead role of his own movies, especially when he covers things like Shakespeare. But also he is in, of course, the Harry Potter movies, and he's in some Christopher Nolan movies as well. So being an experienced actor himself, he seemed to really emotionally engage with the other actors and also push them dramatically, which they all really liked. Anthony Hopkins in particular liked Kenneth Branagh, and a really sweet behind the scenes interview states that Anthony Hopkins was considering retiring from acting, but working with Branagh on Thor gave him a bit of a push and gave him that passion back that he felt like maybe he wasn't finished with acting, and that's great to see as well. Now, if you know Kenneth Branagh's films, this won't surprise you, but the focus in this film is drama and playing everything up like a Shakespearean play. This is what everybody says about Thor. I'm gonna steer away from that kind of analysis because everybody says it. This movie feels like Shakespeare, which makes sense because Kenneth Branagh is clearly a Shakespearean actor and writer and director. He's obviously done things like Hamlet, and I think he even made a Shakespeare biopic. I have like a vague memory of that in my head, but I can't quite remember. So of course there's a big focus on the drama of this film, which I think works as well. It's a heightened reality where there's gods and magic, so of course we're going to have heightened emotions and elevated writing beyond, typical human interaction. Everything is a bit more poetic, a bit more dramatic. Now, most of the behind the scenes information on this movie is focused on the production design, more specifically on Asgard, which is great to see. Bo Welch was the production designer on this film, and he wanted to take Asgard and push it to its absolute height, which I think you can see definitely in the film. Everything is gold and silver, and everything has this kind of royal, ethereal feel to it. And he had 3 different design inspirations to draw from. He wanted to obviously homage the Jack Kirby artwork from when he drew the Thor comic books. He wanted to draw from Norse mythology, where all these characters originate, and then also he wanted to draw from modern architecture. Not only that, but like an advanced architecture. The idea of like how far into the future can we go? How futuristic can we get with this modern architecture? What could the world be like in 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 years? They wanted to create a world that was so advanced that it would not be cluttered by human possessions or human furniture or anything like that. The idea is that we have moved past all of that in Asgard. They've gone beyond the need for any of that kind of stuff. So that's why a lot of these halls are not necessarily empty, because they still have tables and chairs and little kind of ornaments and stuff like that, but everything is very minimalist. And one of my favorite aspects of the production design of this film is practicality, which I'm sure will get much more interesting as we keep going through the MCU, but I love that there was a big focus on practical costumes, practical sets, and minimal green screen. There is, of course, some green screen used, there's a lot of CGI used. You can't make a movie like this without it, really. But I love seeing the practical sets of Asgard and seeing all the real costumes with real capes and props and everything. It is great to see, and it just provides a grounded feel to this very godlike film. A big concern for them in the production design was the Rainbow Bridge, because you, of course, draw from various inspirations. A lot of the original Norse mythology consider it to be a literal bridge made of rainbows, but that doesn't really work in a modern context. So they settled on kind of combining various aspects. There is a literal bridge that they built, and the idea is that there are surges of energy that are all different colors going through it. But then the way you get to Earth from it is it kind of creates a portal that still has that rainbow look to it, but that way it's not just a physical bridge that's coming down to Earth. I think it works extremely well. It combines all the best aspects of the comic books and the Norse mythology. I think it works extremely well. Now, there is, of course, another proper main set. It is the town in New Mexico that Thor spends a lot of his time, and they built that over an actual facade of a western town. Now, this is something that I never picked up on before, but it does become clear when you know. But they wanted it to reflect Asgard, as if it's Asgard, but with architecture from Earth. And you can definitely see it when it's there. There's kind of a long main street with a large building at the end of it that definitely looks like Asgard when you have the kind of royal castle, I suppose you'd call it, at the very end of this long strip of buildings and things like that. So it makes sense, although, as I will get to in my review, I don't know if the film is necessarily shot in a way that lends itself to that comparison. Now onto the costumes. The costume designer of this film is Alexandra Byrne. If you have seen my Costuming Chronicles videos, then you will be familiar with Byrne's work on some other superhero films. She similarly wanted to pay homage to the Jack Kirby art. A lot of the extras, specifically, she wanted them to wear kind of a monochrome set of clothes, because when Jack Kirby was drawing these comic books, the backgrounds were often just some lines to resemble the human figure, and a lot of it then was very monochrome, specifically kind of a goldish brown. So she wanted to homage that in a way and have all the background extras reflect that, which I think works. They blend into the background, but it still fills out the world. That is all I will say on the costumes, because I will probably at some point do a Costuming Chronicles video for Thor. So the final note I'll make on Alexandra Burns' philosophy with this film was practicality. Practical costumes, practical capes, everything had to be real in camera. She wanted to use as little CGI as possible, which I think works extremely well. Now, on to the hammer, which is arguably more popular than Thor at this point. That hammer has become a big part of pop culture, and Kenneth Branagh's first challenge with the hammer was pronouncing the name of it. It's weird to think of a time before people knew it was Mjolnir, even if that is it. That might have just been what they decided on the day, and now that's it. It's Mjolnir. But the idea of not knowing what that is pronounced or called, because it's everywhere now, it's weird and interesting. Beyond the pronunciation of the name, they wanted the hammer to reflect Norse mythology in having runes and markings on it that paid homage to that Scandinavian kind of origin for it. They made a few different sizes as well of the hammer, so they could test it with Chris Hemsworth. If it's too small, it looks like a rock hammer. If it's too large, then it looks stupid in his hand. They wanted to size it so that it works well in Chris Hemsworth's hand. They also made a few different hammers with different levels of detail and weight. The heaviest hammer was made of a more dense material that you could have more close-up shots with it, where you can really see those markings and ruins and see the scuff marks and all the markings on it and the texture of it. So that was often the heaviest one, but it was used mostly for close-ups and hero shots. But then they had a lighter hammer that was used for wide shots and action scenes. This was made of foam and did not have nearly as much detail on it. And that is it for the behind-the-scenes information I have on Thor. I found this film very fascinating to get into the behind the scenes of. You can tell that everybody working on this film was really excited to explore this world and create everything practically and really forge a world around these characters. And it's great to see. And it's great to see all these actors as well just absolutely gushing over Kenneth Branagh and how great a director he is. It's really brilliant to see. I love seeing that level of inspiration from a team of collaborators on this film. But enough of that. Let's get into my review of Thor. What do I think of it? And this is still the best Thor movie. I've seen them all. Some I've seen more recently than others, so who knows? Maybe when I watch The Dark World for this series, my opinion will change. I doubt it, but we'll see. But ultimately, why do I think this is the best Thor movie? I will talk about this when I talk about the other two Thor movies in the Infinity Saga, and I will maybe make more detailed comparisons then. Why is this the best Thor movie? I think it is packed with purposeful, unique style, and despite its grandiosity, I think the character moments reflect the human experience really well in a way that the other Thor movies just don't do. As I gushed a little bit in the behind the scenes section of this video, the production design really wins here. I think it's brilliant. I think the practicality of it is great. It reflects the mythical sort of royal feel of Asgard with the gold and silver, just with the whole place being lined with gold and silver. I think it's excellent. It provides not only a great contrast to Earth, but it also reflects Kenneth Branagh's instincts when it comes to movie making. The sets and the costumes reflect the detailing of the Scandinavian mythology that the characters originate from, but it also has the simplicity of Jack Kirby's art with the cape and the discs on Thor's chest and the horns on Loki's head. And I do find it interesting how they designed the Mexican town to reflect Asgard, but unfortunately I just don't think it is shot well enough to reflect that. This has been said, but the Mexican town just isn't that interesting, which is odd because in our previous movies, we have Malibu and LA as sets for the Iron Man movies, which are very interesting and very unique and different, and it's shot in a way that gives it a unique vibe. And then, of course, for the Incredible Hulk, we have the Harlem Street, which they didn't even film on the actual street. They recreated it in Canada, and it still works really well as a backdrop to the final fight. But with Thor, I get setting it in small town America somewhere to provide a contrast to all of that, but in terms of having it reflect Asgard, it's an interesting idea. I just don't think it was executed in an interesting way. Also, the score by Patrick Doyle is brilliant, and it should have remained the music for Thor throughout the MCU, in his own movies and in the Avengers movies. I'm gonna try and talk about this as much as possible in the MCU, but I think in a couple of future videos I'm really going to get into it when we get to sequels for certain characters. But a big problem that I have with the MCU is the score and the consistency, or lack thereof, of the score. But specifically, I think the track Science and Magic from the original motion picture soundtrack, I think it's absolutely beautiful, with the string instruments reflecting Thor being at his most vulnerable and most human as he's connecting with Jane, and I think as well the woodwind instruments providing a sense of wonder to Jane learning about Asgard and the Nine Realms. I think it just works extremely well. Patrick Doyle is a brilliant composer, especially for fantasy films. Also, the acting is brilliant across the board. Obviously, we have Stellan Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins, acting veterans, providing this kind of legitimacy to it. Obviously, they are older actors playing older characters, so they do feel kind of like almost father figures in this film, sort of watching over our more young blood. As well as Natalie Portman, who was a very much established actor at this point, but I think also having a skilled actor playing the secondary character is also really smart, given the level of experience that Hemsworth and Hiddleston had before this film. And also, I think Kat Dennings is really funny. I remember, like, a lot of people, especially around the time that Infinity War and Endgame were coming out, and everybody was talking about the Marvel movies leading up to that, because you could do that at that time, because there wasn't 1,000 hours worth of stuff to watch. I remember people complaining about Kat Dennings as Darcy in this film, but going back to it, I think she's really funny, and I think Kat Dennings is a really skilled comedian. But of course, acting-wise, the standouts here are Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. They are unbelievable in these roles, and it's, of course, they would become stars after this movie came out, because they are just brilliant in this movie. Of course, everybody knows the story that they were no-names at this point, and there were articles at the time stating that they were no-names. I'm not sure what Tom Hiddleston had done before this, but Chris Hemsworth's only claim to fame, really, aside from Neighbours in Australia, his only claim to fame was the Star Trek movie, where he had one death scene, and that was it. He was barely even a character. So, what brilliant breakout stars from this film. And in this film, I love how they both demonstrate different kinds of immaturity. Chris, of course, demonstrates this kind of macho, rash level of immaturity where he lashes out and he wants to go out and just hit everything head on. However, Tom Hiddleston shows a level of immaturity in the sense that he is petty and jealous and feels like the entire world is against him, and so in response to that he also lashes out, but in a sneakier, smaller way. However, this film is far from perfect. I can't sing its praises constantly because it's not a perfect movie. It's far from it. I do find that the stuff set on Earth is a bit overstuffed. You know, people say this a lot, but the Earth stuff is the most boring stuff and we want more stuff on Asgard. And it is true. I do think that it is a bit overstuffed with jokes and kind of meaningless character moments. Like, we don't need the scene of Stellan Skarsgård, Kat Dennings, and Natalie Portman lamenting over their stolen stuff. In fact, a lot of the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff probably could have been cut. We don't need as many jokes of people attempting to lift Thor's hammer. We didn't need scenes like Stellan Skarsgård learning about Thor from a library book. I think that kind of stuff probably could have been cut in favour of more scenes with Loki on Asgard, because I think that that storyline is kind of hurt by the amount of stuff that's set on Earth. While Loki's motivations are incredible, and that comes a lot from Tom Hiddleston's performance, I do think that his actual plan and the stuff with Laufey is undercooked. Laufey is reduced to a kind of cackling Shakespearean villain. I think we could have maybe seen more vulnerability from him. Maybe more of him coming to terms with the fact that Odin stole his son from him. And more of that. Just Loki's plan just felt a little bit undercooked, and we could have had more scenes concerning that, and maybe more scenes with him as king. However, I want to end on a positive, so I will say another one of my favourite aspects of this film is the parallel character arcs of Thor and Loki. Both of them realizing that they were never meant to be king of Asgard. For Loki, it's the realization that he will never be king. No matter how much he wants it, he will never be suited to it, he will never be chosen for it, and he will never be good enough for the throne. This kind of comes when Odin tries to save him, but he tells Loki that there's just no way he could have been king and could have ruled over Asgard, and so Loki accepts that and falls into the Bifrost willingly. For Thor, it is the realization that he is still too immature and still has much more to learn before he can be king. I love how this film didn't end with him taking the throne and completing the character arc in that sense. He wasn't ready for it at the beginning, so he's ready for it at the end. He's not. The character arc is him accepting that he isn't, and that he still has much to learn, and that he needs to figure out how to be king first. And so that was the Kinospective of Thor. On a budget of $150 million, a little more money than I thought it would be, but I suppose there are a lot of special effects heavy scenes and a lot of marketable actors in this, far more than previous MCU movies. And this film grossed $449 million at the worldwide box office. So a tidy little return, not quite Iron Man money, but still a tidy little return. We are fast-tracked on our way to the Avengers. So the MCU is going strong. And that was Kenneth Branagh's Thor. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. A lot of work went into it. I hope you're enjoying the MCU Kinospective series. I'm having a lot of fun making it. If you like this video, guys, please do give it a like down below. Comment below. What do you think of Thor? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Where does it rank on your Thor ranking? Is it the best, like I think, or is it maybe a little lower down? I'm sure a lot of you will say that Ragnarok was the best one. We'll get into that when I cover that movie. So subscribe to the channel for more from the Kinospective and other videos as well. I don't just talk Marvel movies. I try to talk everything. So please subscribe for more videos, and I hope you all have a great day, guys. I'll see you in the movies.